Welcome! This is the first episode of Movie Theory. I'm your host, Kyle Parrish, and each week we're going to be looking at a different topic in film and pop culture, deciphering it, and developing a theory behind why it's happening or what may end up happening. But first, let's take a few minutes to look back at this past week in film. Disney, the home of 90% of the movies that you care about now. Earlier, Disney released Aladdin, a movie that had a lot of people thinking that it might end up being the bomb of May. And most of that fear came from this. Will Smith as the genie. Now, like a lot of you, I grew up with Robin Williams as the genie, and I was worried about someone else taking over that iconic role. And as we got closer to release, I didn't feel any better. They hadn't released anything that made me feel confident. I was completely on board with the idea of believing that Disney had screwed up and might need to actually stop making remakes of their classics. But I was wrong. Aladdin ended up capturing most of the excitement that the original had. And that's not to say that it's perfect. Nothing's ever actually perfect, but it definitely was a great surprise. No, Will Smith isn't Robin Williams. Did we ever actually think he would be? But he ended up giving us a really good second option. It's now amassed over $500 million at the box office, more than the original Aladdin film did. And it's been a great showing for another Disney remake. But let's be fair. This is just the appetizer to the main course. The Lion King. Now, doesn't that little Simba just look cuddly? You just want to go and hug him, don't you? Admit to it. You just want to go and hug him right now. I know you're thinking about it. I think in the end we're all just really, really excited for that. Next, the first reactions from Toy Story 4 are starting to leak out. Now, after bawling my eyes out like a kid who just had their favorite toy taken away, it happened to me a lot when I was a kid, I wasn't exactly expecting a fourth Toy Story movie after how well the third had wrapped the series up. What can they possibly do to top it? Well, if you believe the first reactions, they actually have. Bring the tissues. I've never cried so much ever. How? How is that actually possible? What could they possibly do to beat the heartbreaking incinerator scene? Do they actually get incinerated this time? Because actually seeing that happen might be the only thing that will make me cry more. And if I see it, I'm going to need serious counseling. Most people would. Why can't we just have a film end with a really happy, fun ending and not make us want to cry? It's the reason I can't watch movies with dogs in them. Always after the heartstrings. Anyway, rumor is that this will be the last Toy Story movie, and if it is, I hope it goes out on a fun, positive feeling that makes us all look back fondly on our childhoods. Lastly, and perhaps most excitingly, rumors started appearing over the last few years that visionary writer and director Quentin Tarantino had a dream to make a Star Trek movie. Yes, that guy wanted to make a Star Trek movie. Most people either laughed at the idea or was extremely excited by it. Then Tarantino came out and said that the rumors were actually true. Yes, the man known for strongly rated R-rated films actually wanted to make a Star Trek movie. Now, while we still have no idea what the story would be about, this week we did get a bit more information. Tarantino was asked about his Star Trek movie and said that there is in fact a completed script. Yes, guess what? It's definitely an R-rated film, too. That's right, folks. The chances of seeing an R-rated Star Trek movie is becoming more and more possible. Now, I'm not sure that it's ever something that Star Trek fans have ever really wanted, but I must say it's an interesting idea. And we've actually already seen a taste of what R-rated Trek could be like.
You leave me alone with that fucking albino. He doesn't listen to me. I know a damn speciation when I see one.
See, I'm confused. Is that Professor X talking about this guy? Or is that an old Captain Picard talking about this guy? I bet you never thought of that, did you? And now, this.
I did a recording, a taping, which must be somewhere in the vaults of Paramount Pictures, where we experimented with the French accent. Would you like to hear a sample of it?
Oh, yes, go on.
Love to hear
Yes.
example.
Okay. Space. The final frontier desires the voyage of the starship Enterprise. They didn't use it.
Space, the final frontier. It would have been so funny to have actually seen that happen. But alright, our main story tonight comes from Ron Howard. Last week, the actor turned director was asked what he thought went wrong with Solo, a Star Wars story. Howard felt that while scheduling and marketing may have had a small part to play in the poor box office showing, the director felt that the main issue was from fan backlash. Now, for those of you who are not aware of the events leading to the Solo's release, it's important to know the fact. 6 months earlier, another Star Wars film, The Last Jedi, was released and quickly became the most dividing film in the franchise, possibly of all time. Fans loved to hate it, or they absolutely loved it. Be it the way they treated Luke Skywalker, the apparent dismissal of all the groundwork made in the previous film, or the introduction of new characters, the fan base was splintered to its core. Most directly blamed director and writer Rian Johnson, an act we saw some fans do with creator George Lucas when he released the prequel trilogy. And while it's perfectly okay to have open discussions, that is basically the basis of this show, and so many others out there. That isn't what happened. Now, before I go too much further into this, it's also important to note that not all fans hated The Last Jedi, just like not all fans hated the prequels. In fact, some, myself included, rather enjoyed it. So, I want to be clear that I'm not talking about all fans. And not all the fans who actually claim to have hated The Last Jedi or the prequels went to do anything about it. But there are a small percentage that seem to have spent too much time listening to this guy.
Good. Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the hate flow through you.
Yes, they went to the dark side. That's right. And you might be asking why what some fans say makes a big difference, and I'm going to break it down for you. 1. There is the mass idea of spamming review websites. Now, for all of you are likely familiar with the website Rotten Tomatoes. It lets you rate films on a 0 to 10 scale, and thus determining if a film is rated fresh or not. Now, until very recently, it was actually possible to rate a film without actually going to see it. For example, after Brie Larson made some comments in an interview saying she wanted more women reviewers reviewing Captain Marvel, a bunch of individuals that felt threatened by that statement went out to try and hurt the film. So weeks before Captain Marvel's release, it had already had a viewer score of 1 star. 1 star! Without anyone actually seeing it, simply because something that had nothing to do with the movie at all. Now, in the case of this film, word of mouth and the amazing Marvel machine was enough to overcome this. And you might be asking why this would even matter, but for some people out there, they make their whole movie viewing choices off reviews. If you're a big Marvel fan, then you're going to go see the film anyways. But if you're just a casual movie viewer, and you're just looking at reviews deciding what to go see, then yeah, this definitely makes a difference. The same thing happened with Solo. And see, you thought I forgot how this all started. While it didn't receive quite as strong a reviews as Captain Marvel, Solo was described as a fun adventure, and many fans did actually like it. But the masses of angry people got to the film reviews first. This was already a film with a wavering interest because it wasn't a story that everyone was looking to see be made big. Add to the onslaught of reviews from people who never went to see the film but decided they weren't even going to give it a chance, and you've already got an unwinnable scenario. Now, I'm happy to report that just recently, review sites such as Rotten Tomatoes have noticed this issue and now require you to verify your tickets before you can review a film. So now what will angry fans do? Well, it's actually something that's much worse, and frankly, at a really disturbing level. And this is something that isn't new, but it's become more of an increasingly normal thing. Just take a look at this.
The reason why I almost ended my life on the Brooklyn Bridge was because 20 years ago, I played Jar Jar Binks in Star Wars. I faced a media backlash that really made me feel like my life was over. Then the movie came out. And there was just so much hate and venom and anger directed at me. And I took it personally. And a lot of times, I hear people say, we're not talking about you, we're talking about Jar Jar. You're talking about me. I put a lot of me into that work. And if you talk to any artist, and you talk to any artist who really cares about their work, you're talking about them.
Now, watching that is really quite heartbreaking. I'm going to leave a link to the whole video down below because it really it's such an important piece for you to watch. But what happened to Ahmed Best was not an isolated incident, but it was at a time when the internet was just beginning. There was no Facebook, no Twitter, and no YouTube in 1999, and the attacks have grown as the internet grew. To this day, Jar Jar is listed as the most hated character in Star Wars, possibly even beyond Star Wars. It's one thing to say you didn't like a character or a specific part of a film. It's another when you glaringly, unforgivingly attack a person playing a role because they represent that character. You have to remember that making a movie or TV show doesn't happen overnight. It can take years. They spend months to years working to make a character the best that they can, and then to be put down for their work, to be publicly shamed, like all that work was for nothing, and they are terrible for it. How would you feel? How would you feel if your boss, coworkers, friends, family came to you and told you that your past project was a piece of shit and they are never going to let you forget it? You'd probably feel pretty hurt, heartbroken even, and there is no way for you to escape it. It's the same situation here, except with social media. It's not just how a few people feel, it's hundreds, thousands of people following you everywhere, never letting you forget it. And like I said, sadly the situation isn't unique. It happens every day. If you do a quick Google search for people who have left social media for good or for a short time, you'll find a disturbing list, and it's all people leaving because of people doing this form of bullying. Weren't we supposed to learn and grow past this after grade school? Of course, this doesn't just happen to actors. Take this for example. Yes, I'm going there. Game of Thrones, the show whose theme song is stuck in your head and never leaves, but do you really want it to? And I know you're humming the song right now, aren't you? Now, unless you've been in a coma for the last 2 months, you know that the Season 8 of Game of Thrones has aired, and it didn't go exactly the way fans expected it to. In fact, many of the episodes ended up being the lowest rating levels ever for the show. This has even led to a petition to have the season redone, which at the time of this recording was over 1.9 million signatures. 1.9 million! That's more than the entire population of Latvia. Now, this petition has received heavy backlash from the cast of Game of Thrones, with most of them being very explicit about their feelings. But I think Sophie Turner, the actress who, for those who don't know, plays Sansa Stark, now Queen of the North, hit a very important and often overlooked point. All these petitions and things like that, I think it's disrespectful to the crew, the writers, and the filmmakers who have worked tirelessly for over 10 years and for 11 months of shooting the last season. Like 50-something night shoots. So many people worked so hard on it, and for people to just rubbish it because it's not what they wanted to see is just disrespectful. She makes a great point. When you're calling for a reshoot of an entire season or movie, that affects a lot of people. While fans have directed their distaste at the writers, try and look at it from a different perspective. Let's say you worked on Game of Thrones and you read the headline, "Fans demand entire reshoot of season." What goes through your head? They didn't like what I did. Just like how we discussed earlier, that's a terrible feeling. And no, I'm not saying that you have to like everything you see. It's natural for some people to like something and others to not. But it's how we go about it that makes the difference. People say things without thinking about the broader impacts that it might have on others. Again, this is the lesson we were supposed to learn as children. So let's tie this thing together. First, we know that people have their own opinions. That is a fundamental part of freedom, having your own voice. I wouldn't be able to do this right now without it. You are allowed to not like something. No one will ever say that you can't. Since the dawn of time, people have liked and disliked things. It will be that way forever. But what's changed recently is how we express those opinions. Social media has become a catalyst for spreading our opinions, for having discussion on things we enjoy or dislike. But with this, now everyone's voice can be heard, and it can be seen by the people that you directed at. So in the past, when someone might get a handful of hurtful comments about a project they worked on, now they can be hit by millions. Being put down by one person can hurt. How do you think it feels being put down by 1,000, or maybe even 1.9 million? It can feel like there's no escape, and that can drive people to do terrible things. So what I'm saying is, it's okay to have an opinion. It's okay to express that opinion. but please be aware of the consequences it might have on others. We are in a new age. We become extremely attached to things, be it movie series or TV series, books, music, and we come up with theories. We develop an idea in our head about how we think it should go. But life doesn't always go the way we think. There are other people out there with different theories, their own ideas of how something should go. No one way is the right way. If it doesn't go your way, it's fine. You'll live. Move on. Make a fan fiction if you really want your idea seen. Just don't go out and attacking people about it. Yes, maybe you didn't like how The Last Jedi went, or you didn't like the character of Jar Jar, or you thought that Jon Snow should have been on the Iron Throne. It's okay to feel that way, but attacking people over it isn't, and it never will be. Grow up and be civil about it. We don't always get what we want, so don't go throwing a temper tantrum over it. I know it works fine for the president, but that shouldn't be the norm. Does that guy ever look normal? He always looks ridiculous. So, to recap tonight's episode, we learned that Aladdin is just the appetizer for The Lion King. Toy Story 4 is going to be sadder than Toy Story 3. An R-rated Star Trek movie could be really awesome, and some fans become so attached to their theories and ideas that it turns them into schoolyard bullies. Now, this first episode wasn't as fun or full of movie theories as future episodes will be, I promise. While I want to explore ideas and theories for upcoming stories, like how the Emperor survived that fall and is in Rise of Skywalker, or who's going to be the next big bad in the MCU, I also want to touch on more difficult topics like in today's, because I feel that is important to understand what else is going on in the world of fandom. Sometimes we need to step back and look at something that's been happening right in front of us in order to see what's really been happening. So I want to thank you all for watching. Please give us a like, share, and or follow. Leave your comments below, but remember what we just talked about. Have a great week, and I will see you next time on Movie Theory.